Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to have you here. We've got a fantastic webinar planned for you. As we get started, please just take some time to put your name and introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to know where everyone is calling in from. We'll start in a couple of minutes, so we want to get as many folks who've registered to jump on. Just know that this webinar will be recorded and you'll get a link to the recording after we conclude. And with that, just hang tight. We'll get started real soon. All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here. We've got a really informative webinar planned for you. As already mentioned, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to know where you're calling in from. Also, please note that this webinar will be recorded and that you'll get a link to the recording once we conclude. My name is Ashish Joy. I lead marketing here at UpCodes. I'm joined today by John Dickman, a senior account executive here at UpCodes, who'll be presenting. We're really excited to have you join, and let's get started. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. Please ask questions via the Q&A button in your Zoom window. We'll have dedicated time at the end to answer as many of your questions as we can. Also, you'll receive a recording of the webinar for you to reference in case you have to hop off early, although we totally hope that you can stay. And we'd love to hear what else you'd like to learn about and how we can improve further webinars. So keep an eye out for a webinar survey. After this webinar, our hope is that building codes will be easy for you. Why? Because you'll see that all the relevant codes for a jurisdiction are in one unified location. You'll have additional context and information about code adoptions, local amendments, and adoption information. And you'll know exactly how to structure your code research for both you and your team. And with that, I'm going to hand things off to John. He'll be taking you on a high-level overview of UpCodes as well as a live demo. John, why don't you take it away?
All right. Thanks, Ashish. And we'll get started here. So as many of you know, code research can be highly fragmented. What codes are available in a particular jurisdiction? Are there any local amendments? Where do we have those? Are they in the library? Did Todd take the books home at our hybrid schedule and now I can't access it? Come on, Todd. Are they on the company server? So how can we take all that and put it in one spot? Easy to use, easy to find. A lot of organizations don't have a dedicated solution for code compliance. We've got a dedicated solution for almost everything else, right? Project management, spec writing, plan review, not a whole lot for code compliance. And UpCodes seeks to fill that gap. So we're going to take a look today at the consolidated platform for your code research. We'll talk about how the platform will automate and structure that research for you. And then we'll talk about how we can create a company-wide knowledge base. A lot of times, code knowledge is won over hard-fought battles with building inspectors and in the trenches with the books. So how can we take those lessons we've learned through the years and make sure that everybody can benefit from them? And we as a firm now, we don't have to learn that over and over again. We're working with a ton of firms at UpCodes, a lot of building departments, plan checkers, building inspectors, fire departments, a lot of architecture firms, big ones, small ones, general contractors. MEP is a large growing segment for us. And we have about 600,000 monthly active users logging on to UpCodes every month. So we're going to look at our code library and how we can search that. We'll talk about some code education pieces, code automation, and project management. All right, we'll hop over into UpCodes now. And first thing I'll say is that we host the codes in two different ways. We have all these different adoptions by various publishers, a lot of different building code adoptions, NFPA adoptions, ASHRAE adoptions, FGI guideline adoptions, accessibility codes. All sorts of different codes. And then I can also go off to the left here and find a particular jurisdiction. All 50 states, larger cities. And we have three main priorities here. The first being making sure that the codes we have online are fully accurate and up to date. So for instance, Connecticut very recently just adopted a new code. Well, we've got their current code. California, for instance, they're adopting a new code. I guess it will become live January 1st. That code's already on here. So making sure anything on the code cycle front is going to be tracked and updated. And then along with any sort of supplements or errata, we're going to be tracking all that information. We work very closely with these AHJs to make sure that any changes that are coming, we catch wind of them way downstream and then are able to put them on the site. The other priority is adding lots of jurisdictions. So we're going to keep adding cities to this list, and this will continually be growing with local municipal codes. And then finally, this list here of different types of codes that we host is going to keep growing. And maybe I'm not supposed to say this, but in the coming months, we're going to see this this list here start to grow pretty significantly. So lots of exciting adoptions coming your way. So that's the code library. And one thing I'll say about the code is everything on here is free. Anybody can access these codes. So when you're working with a building inspector, a contractor, the architect, anybody that you're in communication with about the building code, these can all be shared and accessed by any and all. Now, with this kind of code library and this powerful database of codes that we've built, it allows you to do some pretty cool things with those. And the first is to create these projects. The main idea of these projects is to store information in usable chunks. And maybe the first way you would do that is with a particular project. So here I'm working on a hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. And what I've done is I've gone through and started to create bookmarks of relevant section of code. So we're going to go and add to these different bookmarks. And I'm going to start to identify sections of code that I think are really important. So obviously I should go to the chapter 21, and we're going to find out masonry veneer. We definitely are going to need that. So I'm going to bookmark that section. Anything that's relevant to my project, I'm just going to go ahead and bookmark it. Now I can bookmark items from other types of codes within that jurisdiction. So my project's taking place in North Carolina. I need to make sure that I'm looking in the fire code for relevant sections as well. All right, so I'm bookmarking relevant sections. I can also, if I've got a question about something here and I'm not particularly sure how this is going to play into my project, but I know someone who does. Mitchell. Mitchell knows all about the approvals needed for the International Fuel and Gas Code. So I'm going to tag Mitchell here on this particular section of code. And I'm going to type out my question to Mitchell. Now Mitchell is going to get an email saying, John just tagged you in the project. He can click a link and it's going to take him right into the project. And now we're talking about the building code. We're coordinating our questions. We're a cross-functional team. We have architects and engineers, different specialties, and all of those conversations that we have, all the questions are going to be answered right here in this main project page, and they're going to be stored with our highlighted sections. Or I could just add commentary. So I had a conversation with an AHJ and it really clarified my understanding about this section of code or how it applied to my project. Or, there's an exception here to the code and I'm really going to finagle the building code to make it work for my project the way I want. But I'm going to make my argument here, my argument with my thoughts and various things that I'm thinking about. And I'm going to post those here. Now, when the building inspector says, hey, John, did you ever think about this particular section? I'll say, yes, I did. And I even remember what I thought about it, and I recorded it with that section of code. So now that I've highlighted various sections, I've added commentary, all this is going to live here in this project page. And if needed, I can export it out into a PDF document. So we'll open that up. A lot of folks will use this as their guiding document, their code sheet for their project, a best of, something that they'll share with the contractors to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And again, any commentary that I've added is going to be included right in there. Now on this particular project, I've just been working with Mitchell, but of course I could add others into my project as well. I want to get Ashish working on this project. Now he has full access to start working on that project. So that's part one. I've done this code analysis, understanding the important codes. Now part two is our code calculator. And the way to think about this is TurboTax for the building code. With TurboTax, I say, well, I'm married, I have this many kids, I live here, I made this much money. Based on the information I punch in, TurboTax tells me how much I owe to Uncle Sam. Same idea here. I'm going to enter in information about my building, occupancy group, function of space, designed area, how many stories, sprinkler type of construction, whether or not I have fire separated occupancies. And based on that information that I punch in, the calculator is going to tell me whether or not my project is compliant. So here I can see all my different, I've got a non-separated mixed occupancy here. So I've got one allowable area for each of my stories for all my different occupancy groups. And each time we do a calculation, we're going to walk you through the logic of the code that we use to arrive at our conclusions. So the first question will be, well, is this an unlimited area exemption building? No, looks like it doesn't meet the criteria. But if I want to check it out, here's those sections right there. And I could get a refresher on whether or not it's an unlimited area building. Did we qualify for an area factor increase due to frontage? Well, we have 25% of the perimeter on the public way. So we'll go ahead and calculate the perimeter, the qualifying perimeter, based on distance to right-of-way lot lines. We'll get our equation here to get our factor increase. and then we'll increase the tabular area accordingly. And again, each step along the way, we're linking you to those sections of code saying, all right, here's the equation we use to get there. You know, hey, maybe I want to bookmark it. Said, all right, I use this to make sure that I increased my area. Now it's added to my project. So we'll go through and I can see, all right, my allowed area must be greater than the allowable area must be greater than or equal to the total designed area. Perfect. All right, I'm compliant. So we'll go through these calculations in a very similar fashion for key areas here. Building area, building height in feet, height in stories, egress and occupant loads. We'll calculate those occupant loads for you automatically based on occupancy, function of space, designed area. How many exits do we have per story? What's the travel distance, dead end corridor length? Fire ratings, area separations, corridor resistance ratings, and then what are our required plumbing fixture counts? All these items can be exported now as a PDF or Excel. We'll go ahead and do Excel here. And now I've got a detailed code analysis sheet walking me through each step that we just did. Now, if I share this Excel sheet with a building inspector, general contractor, anybody, all they have to do is click these links and it's going to take them onto the code, the free codes. So now that I'm back in the code, I've got to do some additional research here. One thing I'll mention, and again, with that, the codes being free and anybody can access them, each section of code here is individually hyperlinked. So I can copy a link and maybe I want to throw it in an email here. I'm responding to an RFI, giving the clarifying code information. Anyone who clicks that link goes on to UpCodes, sees the free codes. Sections that are referenced are going to pop up with definitions. I can click links to reference sections and it's going to take me right to those other sections, other items. Now within this project, let's say I've gone through this project. I did a whole bunch of research. I really dialed in my code comments. I understood, I put comments into the code where sections of the fire code or NFPA adoptions were more restrictive. I want to reuse this information. I don't want this just to go away. So what we can do is I can turn this project, I can make it visible to my whole team. Now everybody can benefit from that research I've done. And maybe I want to lock it. Before I lock it, maybe we'll rename it. We'll call it a template for hotels, motels, and Holiday Inns. All right, so we've renamed it. I'm going to lock it now. So now when I start my next hotel, my Holiday Inn, a motel, I'm going to come here and duplicate this project. We'll rename it, new project, but I could also change the jurisdiction. So if you're doing projects similarly in different jurisdictions, this one was in North Carolina. The new project, though, that I'm starting out is in Georgia. So I'm going to include all the bookmarks, all the comments, and now we're going to duplicate it. So everything has now been translated. All that code research I did has been translated from the language of North Carolina into the language of Georgia. So any Georgia amendments and things like that will be built into the text now. It's also highlighting for me 3 sections of code that didn't have a corresponding home in the new jurisdiction. So I'll know to go in and fix those. All my code calculator calculations will translate over as well. And so I'll be able to see, hey, what are the changes and implications as we translate this project across a new jurisdiction? Now, maybe this particular project in Georgia is going to be a little bit different. The last one we did had non-separated occupancies. But what I can do is go in and now that this is a new project, maybe we want to change some of those inputs and see what the downstream implications will be of updating from non-separated to separated occupancies. Or maybe we're going to add a storage space. And, you know, I think it's going to be an S1, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to use my little occupancy guide here. And it's going to kind of help jog my memory and ask me the right questions so I can narrow it down to the correct occupancy type. So what's the primary use here? It's storage. There's no hazardous materials. The items are non-combustible. All right, so it's an S2. Great. So I've got my S2. We'll call it an accessory storage area. We'll make it nice and big, and we'll go ahead and make it accessory. But as I make it accessory, oh no, it's giving me some error messages. All right, I've exceeded the non-sprinklered area, what's allowable. And now more than 10% of my floor is accessory occupancy. All right, both no-goes. So it's letting me know right away, are there any sort of downstream implications here? Helpful guides in there, accessory occupancy. You know, some occupancy types are going to require a net area. Well, what's the difference there? Help me figure that out. I can go through and once I enter in information about the building, maybe I want to change the construction type. Could we do a different sprinkler type? Is that available to us? Or maybe we do make it fire separated occupancies. So this code calculator, as I'm translating into a new jurisdiction, is a great way to see, well, what if I change? What if I make these various amendments to my project? What are my code implications? Now as I'm doing this research, obviously it's a pain to switch back and forth between different books or different spreadsheets and things like that. One of the best parts and most widely utilized features on UpCodes Premium is the ability to search. So when I search a term, I'm not just going to, it's not really similar to Control F on a PDF. I'm not just doing a word search on one document. I'm actually searching that term across every book in that jurisdiction. So all the codes we host, I'm now seeing all the hits. So I'm getting a lot of building code results, seeing results for this term in the fire code, sprinkler code, the North Carolina electrical code. So I'm seeing results all sorts of different places. Again, a great way to understand if maybe one of these other sections is more restrictive. I didn't think about it. I didn't think to look there. This quick search is going to reveal all those sorts of discrepancies. But also just an easy way to find information around the code book. All right, I know it's in there somewhere. I can't remember exactly what chapter and section, but let me just type it in real quick. So I've got my results here. I've got my fire pump room. I've got my answers to my questions. This particular section here has some diagrams associated with it. If I click on one of these, and again, we saw these in the code calculator, helping us to understand what was required. Same idea here. What we've done is we've created a graphical display of what the code says in so many words, a visual unpacking of the codes. And we're not trying to make an interpretation of the code as much as just take the time to put the words of the code in an easy display, a visual. This one's real nitty gritty. We were looking at a 2-hour roof floor assembly. I can see all the different components here. Got a plain English overview, and then links to other sections of code that talk about the same topic where this would be relevant. Again, I'm seeing sections here in the fire code, me following the tentacles of the code and getting deeper and deeper into the intention of the code and the rules of the jurisdiction. We have about 700 of these. We're adding 20 to 30 a month. And you've got all sorts of different topics. I can say, well, let's just take a look at accessibility. All the way down to broad concepts like atriums, concrete steps. Another thing that's great about these diagrams is that I can share them. So if I'm, again, having a conversation with a building inspector and trying to make my case, or maybe I want to clarify something, I can post these directly in to an email or document of some sort, and now I can share it. In fact, we got a report the other day, I'm sure this happens pretty regularly, folks answering an RFI using these diagrams. Hey, this is what I intended. Take a look at this image. All right, we'll go back into the codes here. One of the things I can do with the codes as I'm working in different jurisdictions and I want to understand what's changed, what changes when I go from North Carolina to South Carolina, is I can compare the codes side by side. And what we'll do is we'll highlight for you anything that is different. So as again, I'm doing that project, moving items from North Carolina all the way down to Georgia for a similar project. It's going to highlight for me, well, these are the differences you need to keep an eye out for. We can also do this across within a same jurisdiction. So Connecticut, South Carolina, soon Massachusetts, New York City, California, all these jurisdictions that are updating their code, I can take a look at one version to the next. What's changed across this timeline? We'll also flag for you anything that's an amendment that's particular to this section of code or this jurisdiction's code. We'll give you a nice orange badge and put it for you in green. As you're reading the code in different jurisdictions, you don't need to throw everything you know about the code out the window. You just need to be aware of what's changed, what's different in this particular jurisdiction. With that, I think that sums up the key points I wanted to hit today, Ashish. And maybe we could open the floor up for some Q&A at this time.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, John. I think there's some really great questions coming in the Q&A here. Just at a very high level, just to kick things off, you talked about projects. What's the best way for users or even teams to structure their kind of code research with projects? Could you talk a little bit more about that feature and how that works with a team?
Sure, yeah. So again, in the projects, the idea here is to store information in usable chunks. So we've got particular projects that I'm working on. Again, we talked about the idea of creating a template for a whole project. We do this project over and over again. These are the items you need to keep an eye out for. More or less, I'm creating a checklist, if you will, of the important code sections, and then my commentary from lessons learned about this type of project. Folks will even do deep dives on particular items. Some folks, one example was stage platform requirements. They made a particular project where they went through and created the code sections needed for stage and platform requirements. Now, these projects that I have, that I create, I can invite individuals from my team. I can invite individuals from outside my team as long as they have an UpCodes subscription. So we work with a lot of building departments around the country. I could invite the building inspector or the plan checker onto my project. I can invite the general contractor if he's got a license. Or I could just go ahead and make that visible to my whole team. So now anyone on the team can benefit from seeing that project.
Awesome. I think maybe a good follow-up here to kind of the projects question here is, with the bookmarks and the comments, can you share bookmarks and comments with folks who are not within an UpCodes account, or do they have to be, do they also have to be a paying user?
Good question. Yep. And if I want to invite a teammate, someone from another department within my company into the code or into my project, they have to be a paying user, just like me. This project feature, the codes themselves are free, but the tools we looked at, the search feature, the diagrams, the code comparison, the project workflow, the code calculator, all that's on the premium level. So if I want someone to be a part of my project, like Antonio here, he's got to have a license if he wants to participate in that project, if he wants to benefit from getting the emails when I tag him in a project, just like this one I'll show you here. Ashish, this is when you mentioned me in a project. He'll get these emails like this if he's invited on that project, and now he and I can communicate through the project just like we did here. Outside of that, the only way to share it with them would be that PDF. So not a living document, but just the sort of record on PDF of those highlighted codes.
Awesome. And final question on projects, John. Is there a way to see like a template of existing projects? You talked about code calculators, but what if I wanted to see a finished version of all of that?
Yeah, great question. So we've gone through, and when I say we, not me, but our resident plan checker, Scott Johnson, and worked for a decade as a plans examiner in Santa Clara County. He went through and built all these different projects out to show what that would look like. So here's some bookmarks just on the highlights of podium buildings. Here's a mixed use entertainment office building, high rise with retail and residential. So all these different projects, they're locked examples, but you could come in here and see how you might complete a code sheet and what those would look like. Good question.
Awesome. One of the questions that came in, I think would be relevant for the group is, could you just walk through a little bit more about code compare and the amendment styling, kind of show that feature and what's capable, what the capabilities are?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go into a jurisdiction here. We'll go into Connecticut, and I'm picking Connecticut because they just updated their code. And we'll go Connecticut to Connecticut. So, working as an architect in Connecticut, I have a pretty firm understanding of the code that has been, but now that we have this new code adoption, what's going to be changed? What's required of me now? The code compare is exactly how I would highlight those differences and be able to see them in one spot. So now I'm seeing, all right, there's some things that moved around a little bit, but here when we get into fire resistance ratings, looks like there's some pretty substantial changes here. This code compare is going to highlight all those for me. So that's within a jurisdiction, but it can also do the same thing across jurisdictions. I want to know what changes when I go from Connecticut to New York State. Again, highlight those differences and similarities. And then amendment styling is kind of the same idea. It's just as I'm reading the code here, anything that's particular to Connecticut is going to be in green. And we'll flag it for you with a badge that says amendment. So this is an amendment. This is particular to Connecticut. Keep an eye out for it.
Great. And while you're in the code there, John, another question is, can we request codes and diagrams? What's the easiest way for us to do that?
Yeah, good question. And please do so. The codes that we've gathered and the new codes we're putting on, all those have been the result of conversation with architects, engineers, building inspectors, telling us what kind of codes that they use on a regular basis. So if there's a code that you really want to see, please let us know. It helps us to prioritize what you want to see and what codes to put up there next. And same thing with the diagrams. We definitely take requests. And the idea is the same. Tell us what you want to see. We do our best to keep our finger on the pulse of what the industry needs. We're a lean team. So, bandwidth is something we're always trying to expand, but it's easy for us to shift and focus on what is important to you guys. So do let us know what you want to see, and we can make those things happen.
Awesome. And this is just a question that I think a lot of folks have been wondering about. Does a paid subscription include access to all the codes or just specific jurisdictions?
Good question. All the codes, yeah, when you pay, all the codes that we have are available for anybody. Even if you don't pay, the free codes, the free versions are available for anybody. The free codes are the same. They have all the amendments, they're updated. You just don't have these kind of additional features that make using the code really easy. The searching, the code comparison, the diagrams, and then that project workflow, the calculator and the tagging, bookmarking, all that stuff. But yeah, when you pay for codes, you get, all the codes.
Awesome. And, there's frankly a lot of questions coming in, but I'm trying to sift through a few here. What's the best way for folks who aren't ready to pay yet, but they want their whole team to try it? What's the best way for them to get into UpCodes? Should they just start with the team trial, or what does that look like for them, John?
Yeah, great question. You're definitely, we have a 2-week free trial. You can, maybe if I could go incognito and go into UpCodes, show you, but you're able to sign up pretty easily. We'll sign up here. You can create an account. Let's see some pricing. All right, try for 2 weeks free. So you can sign up, try it out. And then, we're very happy to have these sort of conversations with your firm, with your office, with your department, whoever it is. That's what I do all day, talk with firms that are interested in bringing this on in a team way. So we're happy to have those conversations, but feel free to try it out. And then even, just start. A great way to start to verify is, again, these codes are free. So go on there and start using those free codes and tell us what you think. Are they accurate? Are they up to date? Are they the right codes in the right jurisdictions? Full transparency, they're all free. So go on and try it out.
Awesome. And we're also seeing a lot of questions come through about specific code sections, or even specific adoptions. And I'll just add that, our team is always looking to prioritize and add codes. And just as John mentioned, we do have a smaller team, but very, they're experts at what they do. They're experts at curating all this code and putting it into UpCodes. So if there are sections of code or requests that you have, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us and let us know. And we're already seeing some of those here in the chat as well with the questions. So this is great. I think maybe one final question, John, and then we can wrap up here. We talked about the codes, and we've talked about how this is all available and free to you. How does the UpCodes team keep it up to date? What does that turnaround process look like for us?
Yeah, great question. It's kind of a threefold approach. We first have a team that works very closely with the various jurisdictions around the country. Open lines of communication to understand from them, when are you releasing the errata, or are you doing a periodic amendment? When's the next code cycle? So we're tracking each one of these jurisdictions that we host to have those conversations well in advance, so we're prepared for those. We also, I'd say the biggest portion of our team is dedicated to auditing the codes and to make sure that the information we're putting online is accurate. All the particular amendments in a given jurisdiction that we put online are the actual amendments. And then we've spent a long time and a lot of resources to the tune of several $1 million creating the back end package that automatically does these checks for the accuracy as well. So constant checks from the team of auditors, but also this technology package that we have at the back end supporting all these codes. And to that end, I'll say we are updating 2,600 sections of code every week. So the process and the speed at which we're able to track these is pretty impressive and is only increasing. And we've been doing it. That's the primary thing we've been doing, is tracking these codes for accuracy since 2015. So at this point, we're pretty good at it.
Yeah. And just to add, as a marketer, maybe I'm marketing a little bit when I say this, but on our social media as well as via newsletter, you will see all of the various updates. We try to get the word out about code adoption updates, new diagrams, new functionality within UpCodes. We try to get get those comms out to you at least once a month via the newsletter. So if you haven't signed up for that, or you're not getting those, please let us know. We can add you to the list. As well, we do try to send out short updates on social as well to let you know, hey, we updated, like, most recently there was codes that were updated in New Jersey or Connecticut, right? So those things we try to get the word out. So if you want to take all of this further, probably the thing I would recommend for you is to start a free trial. See how UpCodes can be really powerful and just a great tool for your team, whether you're leading an architecture firm, you're mechanical engineering, plumbing engineer, or maybe you're in general contracting, whatever the case may be. Sign up for UpCodes. Coming up soon, we're also going to have a webinar entirely focused around AHJ specific process and customer service. So one of the things we'll try to do is we want the product to speak to you and your use case, and we want you to try it. So the best way to do that is to sign up for your free trial if you haven't already, and we'll be in touch with you to help you along the way. Most of the features that you saw today that John presented were premium features that are part of our paid package, and you get access to that with our free trial, so you can get a chance to show your entire team what UpCodes can do for you. And with that, I just want to say thank you for joining us. We're excited to see how you leverage UpCodes for your next project. If you have any questions about any of this, you can reach out to us at support@up.codes. As well, if you have requests for specific code sections or new diagrams, we'd love to hear from you as well. And with that, hope you have a great day. Thank you, John, for presenting, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.